Hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's video critique. A lot of good images posted tonight, a lot of fun stuff to go through. But to start, I wanted to start off right here with Nicholas's and his animation. So I think the still is looking really good. I kind of want to move over to the animation a little bit and talk about this. So the one thing, a couple things. One, this is a great test. I love using this low resolution test on a shot like this. You don't need to see every single frame because the animation's already been approved, so we already know what that looks like. But from a lighting standpoint, we only need to see every third, every fifth, every 10th frame, or whatever the case may be. So I think this is a really brilliant test that you did. Hopefully you can see my mouse, but there's like a blue dot back here in the background of light peeking through there. I would just plug that up, and you can just do that in the comp. Just like tone that down just because that's standing out a little bit. In terms of the character lighting itself, I think, yes, in in that pose that I found, and I feel bad about this because I feel like I told you to goose the eyes a little bit more, but it is causing some problems in some other poses. And in reality, I believe somebody said this in the comments, but the only way that you can control that is from some noodling in the comp and just animating some values across the points. And what I always do is use, and I know I've said this a ton of times, but use these eye blinks to hide the animation. So eye blinks usually accompany when he goes from a pose change. So he's looking down here, and then he poses up here, but in between there's this eye blink. And what you do is you find out which value works well here and which value works well here, and then you just flip between those two once he's got his eyes closed. Crypto mats are great for this. You can also generate some render mats on your own. And then just some like other, and this is the tweaky part of what we're going through, and this is just the final detail stuff, and it's like, again, just making sure that the eye dings falling where it should. There's one point, oh, here it is. There's one point where the eye ding hits the white part of the eye and it gets pretty bright up there. If you could isolate it, maybe like just use that same crypto mat or RGB mat that you're generating for the eyes, and just turn the eye ding off for the sclera. So when it hits that point, it doesn't bleed into the sclera too much, because it looks like the rest of it was falling pretty well on the barrier between the iris and the pupil. And then you just always kind of want to keep it on the key side. So it looks like it's kind of falling over here to the left side. Sorry to be such a bummer about the eye dings, because honestly, this shot's looking really super great. I think you should be proud of it. I think it's really, really strong work. But it's just these like final cleanup stuff that is going to give the image and the frame a real final polish that you can really add to your reel. But overall, I don't think there's, unless it's like rendering out a separate, and depending on how you made the eye dings, it might be just rendering out a separate pass. But I think from my standpoint, unless others have comments, I really do think you can probably start rendering this at full res. Email me at mike@academyofanimatedart.com if you do not have access to our beta test for our render farm. I can help you out with that. As long as the renders aren't too high, they will. It's totally free for our students. But yeah, if you need that, I can't remember if I set you up with that already. So just email me if that's the case. And because the render farm works well for the animated tests, because it's able to render. It's a render farm, so it's able to render multiple frames on multiple machines. Okay, so now let's talk about Luiz. So I think this is looking really well. I think that this little bit of warmth value is really kind of zeroing us in on this region. The warmth on the firelight looks pretty good. And the only thing that I would do is, I think this is looking better on the tent. I would just add a little bit of extra saturation in the tent, normally because and others who are more outdoorsy than I am can attest, but in my head, camping gear, especially the tent, is always kind of like a super saturated bright color in my head. So I would just push the saturation a little bit more on that. And I think that the rest of it's really falling into place nicely. It looks a little bit low res, so just, jack up the render settings and create one big beautiful final image, and I think you're good there. Dana, so we've got an update here. I think that you've gone too dark with this. So I pulled in your old image because I think we can find a nice balance between the two, because there's some elements about this older one that I think is working really well, and there's some elements about this newer one that's working really well. And the main thing that I like is I like the brightness that we're getting back in the original one, like the brightness around the windows, but I don't like how deep it's penetrating into the space. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of tone this down a little bit, and now we can see light coming through here, but it's now not quite too much. It's not quite reaching all the way across, right? So from the environment standpoint, this is kind of what we want, with potentially some volumetric light coming through here. So let's just kind of simulate that a little bit. Let's make it white for now. Actually, no. Let's drop this down, make it a little bit of a kind of a warmer tone in here. So we can adjust that if we need to. And something like this. Filter, blur. Oof. Screen this over top. So if we just cut this out of the character here, you can see now there's like some and again, this is totally, as you can see, I totally just that is not the best way to do that by any stretch of the imagination, but just something to create kind of a haze back behind the character so that the contrast of the character can kind of pop forward. And then additionally, let's go ahead and, because I kind of like some of the darker values that we're getting here, but not quite to that capacity. Let's go ahead and darken, get a little bit more of the darkness in here. Tone down the saturation because we just increased the contrast a little bit. And then looking at this, now we can go ahead and say all right, I think the chest might be too bright. It's too much. Let's tone down the opacity on this, so we can just kind of dial this in a little bit more. And same thing with the wings. The wings can come down a little bit. And I really like maybe something like this overall would be where we want. And then just adding some more, because I really like the diffuse colors that you're getting on a lot of this stuff, but just add it in the specs too. I was showing yesterday the leatheriness of a bat's wing. Really kind of get that going as well. And you guys have an opportunity here with some of these jewels. There's jewel encrusted things on his jewelry. I'd like to see a little bit of some rubies and things like that on there. So go ahead and play around with that if you want to. But I think that something like this would be a better color palette or value palette than what we're seeing here. But I think that we're good there. All right, Abhishek. All right, good first try at this. Let's see, I thought I had. Oh yeah, we got your reference up here. Yeah, let's just look at that. Okay, so the big thing with the reference, a red light to blue light fall off, kind of both lights hitting the character, blue light on the front, red light on the rim, some nice transitions between the two, actually a lot of soft light, and then the eyes being kind of this glowy green thing. We've got some depth of field here, we've got some light glow happening back here, and for transitioning that into this, I think we can start to work a little bit of this, because it's kind of like a top-down thing where we're getting the red back behind him here, and then that's going to hit him up as a rim light. And then the blue light is going to be more of a bouncy up underneath almost kind of a thing. And then instead of the green eye, you could maybe make, like I said, maybe make these things glow green if you want. And you guys totally don't have to do that. I'm not gonna evaluate or judge you on that for the project, but just thinking of ways of adding some variation and some opportunities there. And the other thing that you really want to watch out for is, again, we're getting some really nice soft transitions coming across here, right? Like subtle fall off between the reds and the blues. And what I'm seeing here is a lot of really sharp shapes. So a lot of very small radius lights, which is going to create some really harsh lines in some areas, and that's going to not allow us to hit that point. And again, same thing, leathery bat wings. Make sure we're getting some specularity in there. And I think that, and also make sure the hat doesn't fall too like jet black, like matte black like that. Make sure we're getting some shaping in there. I think a good reference point would be like something like his wings and the amount of value that's shaping across there. All right. So next up we have Raul. I'm sorry. This is Sara. Sara, this is a really good first start. You've got a lot of really cool references. I love these. This one's cool too. I'm not as into this one. I think there's some problems with this image, but I really, really love these images. And the thing that I'm really liking about them are the desaturated color palette. I really like the dynamic range. Like if I look at this, I'll show it to you two ways. Like if I look at the levels of this, we're getting kind of a full range of levels. Yes, there's a lot of things falling towards the darks, but we're seeing some values in the full range here because we're seeing a lot of brights. Definitely in here too, like some more bright values. And a good way you can tell that is if you create a new layer, dump this on top, and then filter this as a color. Or, I'm sorry, layered in as a color. Now we can really see some dynamic color variation or value variation across these things. And I think this is a really nice study in that, like these brights down here, same thing in here. So this is, by the way, this is how you check luminosity. I know I've shown this before, but this is how you check luminosity in Photoshop. Oftentimes, I'll kind of compare these. Oftentimes artists will just take this and desaturate it, and that actually won't give you a, oh, this is pretty close, but it actually won't give you an accurate, it won't actually give you an accurate portrayal as you're going forward. Looking at yours, you've almost got it. Like you're coming close, but I think we can push some of those brights brighter and get into like that range there. And then in terms of where the brights are located at, because it's coming in from over here, because it's coming in from this side, it's almost like we really want these brighter points to be shining down on him there, as opposed to hitting up here off to the side. So you can see in some of these, like all the brights, the lines are leading up to them. Here and here are leading back to them. The brightest point is her face. And so definitely we want to kind of capitalize that as well. Let's go ahead and do this, pull this off. And then again, like I think you can play with this color palette a little bit more, where you're not quite seeing as much of the saturation. And then let's go ahead and darken the body down a little bit to really get the focus on the face. I actually kind of like your background a little bit. I mean, you can use a backplate if you want, but there's something that you're doing here that I think is working really well, and that's the bump, the shader on the background. It feels like it's making him a lot smaller, because it's actually like the scale of this makes him feel little, and I think that's actually working out well. I think it's good, and I like the shaping that you're getting across the hat. And it's just the same thing, because again, this is probably something that's built into the shaders, is that we just really push the specularity on the feathers and on the cape and stuff. And then in terms of, and this was something else that came up in a couple of the other ones too, but really make sure we're pushing the subsurface on the ears too, because this is an opportunity to get a little bit of that red glow coming through the ears here. But keep playing with it. I think that you're really off to a good start. But just keep pushing brighter values on the face, really focusing us in there. Maybe desaturate some of the colors, darken the body, get some specular highlights in there, and watch out that we're not drawing too much of attention back up and away from the character. But other than that, I think you're doing really well. Raul, this is looking really cool. I love talking about specularity. I think that you're getting some nice specularity in these surrounding objects. That's really helping out a lot. It would be great to get it in the leaf, in these leaves here. Really getting some nice focusing up on the face. Watch out for this like super dark spot right there at the top of the lamp. It's fine that it gets darker, but it's just like that reads a little bit unreal. Also, there's like a weird hard shape right there. I would just watch out for that. I'm not quite sure where that's coming from. It might be coming out of the top of the lamp there. So just something to be aware of. But I love this fall off. I love the shaping on the face. I love the rim around the edge, and I think that you can push the backscatter, as Francesca was saying, more on this. So it's like that fleshy redness like shining through the back of the ear. And I almost think you could probably darken anything out here. I don't think we need to see back in there. Maybe the diffuse value of this radiator gets a little darker, and we just pick up more of the speck coming across here. These books are really cool. I would almost vary out these the page value, like make them a little bit darker, a couple of them. And I think you're going in a really, really nice direction. So keep pushing it, keep going, and yeah, can't wait to see what you guys do. So that's it for tonight. If you guys have any questions at all, make sure you add them to the comments down below. I look forward, again, to seeing how you all progress. I think you're all doing a really brilliant job with this stuff. And until tomorrow, happy lighting.